Hello, everybody. Welcome to Into the Rift Podcast, Season 1, Episode 6. I'm your host, Kenny, and joining me is my brother, Garrett.
What up?
And on this episode, we're going to be speaking about the pale crawlers. So the pale crawlers are another phenomena in the paranormal that is actually kind of recent, similar to the term shadow people, like how we spoke in the previous episodes. This one entered the public domain in the early 2000s.
Yeah, roughly around 2003, I believe.
Yeah, it's basically pale crawlers became more of a thing when the internet started to become more widespread. They gained popularity on internet forums. So whether or not this is like an urban legend or it's a creature that just was being reported more often, things really started to pick up once the internet came about.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar how, like you mentioned, the shadow people thing. Although it's a new name and it's been like kind of like reinvented for like the internet culture era, but there's many folklore like stretching back hundreds of years of very similar accounts of like creatures and entities. I know for one, shadow people, that's kind of been throughout all human history. The pale crawlers are more of a North American native folklore kind of deal, mostly centered around the northeastern part of America and Canada.
Though there have been sightings of them worldwide, even in like Russia, Brazil, and Australia. Witnesses generally describe them as humanoid entities between 5 and 7 feet tall. They have very long torsos and limbs, and generally they move on all fours with an unsettling arachnid-like gait. They're usually very pale, hairless. Some people mention that they have like a leathery skin. Some people say it's more like translucent with visible veins, or sometimes people can even see like bones. If they do have any hair, it's very, very wispy and not like a full head of hair. It's very scant.
Like vellus hair, like a peach fuzz.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, if at all. Kind of the general details might change throughout the descriptions, but the general appearance stays the same. It's more like have he been using lotion or not? Is he ashy? Or is he greasy?
And another thing is, has he went to the dentist? Because they said they have like very large heads with mouths full of like needle-like or jagged teeth.
And some even mention no mouth at all.
Yeah, so one similar topic that we talked about that's could be related to this is actually the Dover Demon.
Right.
So check out the Big Domy Homie episode if you want to hear more about that. So let's get into some stories and see what people have been seeing. So this story took place in 2010 in Illinois. So I'll be reading the story from the perspective of the eyewitness. In 2010, me and 2 friends decided we were going to check out some haunted stuff around out in the country in Effingham, Illinois. We live about 30 minutes away from there. This was a typical weekend night, driving out to the cemetery to respectfully explore. We were told the Casbar Cemetery deep in the woods surrounded by caves outside of Effingham was a really good place. So that night, we head to Effingham and stop for sodas at a gas station and then head to the country. It's about 1 to 2 a.m., so it's dark. I see something with yellow glowing eyes off the side of the country road, just past the ditch and the headlights. Too short to be a deer, but too big to be a possum or raccoon. As we get closer, it gets clearer, and I realize what I'm looking at is a skinny, hairless, and gray, human-like, but definitely not human, crazy as hell looking thing. It was crouched down. Its arms were incredibly long, and it looked like it could have been 7 foot tall or bigger standing up. I can feel myself get cold and my heart race and my hair stand on the back of my neck. I kind of whisper to myself, what the fuck? And then I hear my friend Harley in the back seat shout, what the fuck is that? Complete shock and terror set in, and I can't make a sound. Just staring at it, and by that time, we are right in front of it, passing it, and it just watches us drive by. It slinks into the dark, then we all just start screaming, literally freaking the hell out. I was convinced it was a demon for months, but still doubted myself, even seeing it, thinking my mind was playing tricks on me. We didn't even make it to the Casbah that night. We went straight home. I couldn't sleep that night. 6 months later, I'm at a different friend's house and she gets a text from her cousin. It was the trail camera picture. I went cold again. The hair on the back of my neck stood tall. I was seeing this thing again. I knew we weren't crazy and that there was something to this. I knew for sure now that my mind wasn't playing tricks on me that night. He said he caught it on his trail camera one town over. He told us later it wasn't his camera, that he was just pranking us, but I immediately recognized it. I asked her to send me the picture and I sent it to Hardley. He quickly replies that that's that fucking thing. I found out the picture was faked, but still can't help but to have my doubts. I researched the picture and demons to find some answers and found nothing. Fast forward to October 2012, I'm on Facebook and I come across a page called Weird Effingham, Illinois. So of course I start combing through the entire page and I find reports of sightings around the cemetery of creatures with glowing eyes. Nothing as in-depth as what I saw, but still enough to tell me that we are not the only ones who have seen something like that out there. I researched demons and paranormal some more, but still nothing. Then in 2014, I'm scrolling through my Facebook newsfeed and the trail camera picture pops up. One girl I know posted it on the wall of another girl I know, so I immediately commented my story on it. When I go up to the previous comments, I see that one of the girls were talking about seeing one. She replied to my comment and told me that she had seen it in the county in Effingham too, back in 2011. This guy we went to school with commented on the status too and said he had a friend that was super into the occult and that she said that they are called ghouls. So I went right into researching ghouls. What I find blows my freaking mind. Laura says that they are cave dwellers. As I previously mentioned, the Casbah Cemetery is surrounded by caves. They feed on the freshly dead and normally stay close to cemeteries to be close to food. They have been known to show themselves to humans when trying to get close to them to eat in times when the fresh deceased bodies are scarce. I went to images of them and could only find illustrations, but they look exactly like what I saw that night. Everything I was reading was falling perfectly into place. Lined up perfectly with my experience, I couldn't explain it away. Then last night I came across a Reddit post with a story too similar to mine. This is one of the most incredible things that has ever happened to me, and I will always search for more answers. So, yeah, they were just a group of friends driving out at night to go explore a cemetery, and then they drive by and see that. And yeah, honestly, a lot of the descriptions, they do kind of line up with ghouls, which would be a very scary thing to see, especially at night. You're going to a cemetery. I mean, you're kind of priming yourself to try to see something, but actually seeing something like that would be very, very scary.
Oh, extremely. I mean, just the fact that, well, one, multiple people all saw it at the same time, it just wasn't you. I mean, even if you were priming yourself, psyching up, the first guy didn't even say anything, right? He was just sitting there. He mentally said what the F, but his friend immediately started yelling.
Yeah, the witness who wrote the account kind of whispered to herself, but her friend screamed.
Yeah, so clearly hey, if everybody's on edge and amped up, but someone just goes, "What the hell?" No one else is just gonna be just going, holy shit!" And just starts freaking screaming and wailing.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think they all saw something, and then they probably made the right decision about just turning around and going straight home. They weren't those dumb people in horror movies who are "Oh, let's go to the cemetery and explore after we just saw this monster."
Cool. Let's not make it the typical white people in a horror movie situation where it's I'm going to investigate.
Yeah, they played it smart and came out unscathed.
Best thing to do when you see some weird shit or hear some weird shit and you're in the mountains, the best rule of thumb is, no, you didn't. Go home.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you see some weird shit, the thing that's going to help you the most is going, nope, and running out of there.
Yeah, if you can, just try to act natural, act like you didn't see anything, and walk away. And just be sure that you're not actually being chased. General predator behavior kind of situation. You come across a bear, don't turn your back to it. Don't run. Just act natural and don't try to look like prey.
Right. So there was another story from somebody else. They posted here to Reddit. This sighting occurred in Bristol, Pennsylvania. I have recently been staying with my parents on the other side of Delhouse Woods waiting for my new apartment. 3 nights ago, my partner had gotten an upsetting phone call from a family member. To blow off steam, he took off walking into these woods. I tried to trace after him, but he wouldn't respond to me. I had initially turned back around to head back to my parents' house when I reached 2 houses down. I changed my mind and turned back around into the woods to find him. By the time I hit the first power line pole, I just couldn't walk any further. It was pitch black, pretty much no moonlight was out, and I wouldn't dare step off the main path to look for him even if I decided to keep walking. I started getting overwhelmed by the personal situation him and his family was in, so I just sat at that power line crying. I was being quite loud, just letting it all out because I figured I was alone and no one would hear me. 15 minutes passed by and I thought I heard him talking on the phone walking in a path to my right. I figured he must be finally heading back, so I continued to sit there and wait. Another 10 to 15 minutes went by and there was no sign of him. On the other side of the woods, across from me, I started hearing huffing, like a big animal. I kept telling myself it must be a buck who had run into me and was being wary of my presence. As I'm finally typing out a text message to my partner, it sounds like this animal is walking closer along the side of the trees. Listening to the huffing, I started to get freaked out by the way it sounded. The closer it got, the more of a pit was forming in my stomach. After sending the text, I looked up to see 2 big eyes glowing back at me, making eye contact. It was shining a yellowish color. That's when I felt I was fearing for my life. No animal in the dark I have seen had its eyes glow without a light shining on it. I stood up and turned on my phone's flash, and that's when I saw it. A 7 to 8 foot tall humanoid-looking creature on all fours. So white and pale, it was like any light on it would reflect. As soon as my light hit it, it almost flinched. Instead of running off, it backed up just out of the light. Between looking up at it and back at my phone, I called my partner twice, no answer. I called my brother who would get there quicker. He was asleep. I decided to text my partner, help. After sending the text, I got the idea to start screaming at it in an attempt to maybe make myself look bigger. It just kept watching me. The house closest to me turned on its backyard light on, and it kept looking at the house and then back at me. My partner finally called back, and on speaker, I told him to run to me fast. While this was happening, the creature slowly backed into the woods, almost like it realized I was getting help. I lost sight of it completely by the time my partner was a minute away. When he finally got out, police had stopped us to ask questions. I told the one cop he would think I was crazy when he asked what I saw. I briefly described it in the midst of a panic attack, and the other cop stared at me wide-eyed. They told us to go back to our house and they'd go look. About 2 minutes after sitting in the house, they were gone. I am 23 years old, going to EMT school. I don't smoke or drink or do any drugs. I don't hallucinate or hear voices. I don't believe in things like ghosts. I don't believe in things like Bigfoot or other creatures, not even aliens inhabiting Earth. For the past 3 days, I've been full-blown traumatized, and I can't let it go. Every time I try to think I might have just saw something different, my mind takes me right back to that moment in full detail. That whole encounter lasted 7 minutes, but it felt like maybe 1 minute. I can't live the rest of my life without answers. I don't know how to cope with what I saw. The fact that it was gone by the time my partner showed up, and the fact that I have no idea how long it truly was stalking me is haunting me. So that is a pretty chilling story. I couldn't imagine looking up from my phone and there's just 2 glowing eyes staring at me, and then I shine my flashlight on it and it's this creature just staring at you, like staring at me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the glowing eyes without the actual direct source of light, like the eye shine, like an animal. That's definitely like a reoccurring theme with like a lot of the pill crawler stuff. Is like for some reason they have like some sort of bioluminescent to their eyes, which is creepy, like very.
Yeah, it's definitely shows that it's not natural. Anything natural is not really going to have a bioluminescent eye. They'll have eye shine like a cat, but that requires an external light to be shine on the animal, not having something that's glowing internally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, being confronted with something that large and that unnatural That would probably scare the shit out of me too.
Yeah, and a lot of the descriptions of like the pale crawler or the rake, it's usually they range in size, but the majority of them, the reoccurring size you see is 6 to 8 feet tall if it was standing upright. Almost all the stories, I say almost because there have been a few where it has stood up, but the majority of the stories you will read or like listen to will mostly say that's crawling, hence the name pale crawler. So the reoccurring themes that you'll often see with the pale crawler is, like mentioned in this one, the bioluminescent eyes of like usually orangish red. Often, interesting enough, that is the same as the Dover demon. Go back to the Big Domi Homie episode. Yeah. The reoccurring themes is mostly tall, lanky, kind of looks like a fentanyl addict, but worse. Long fingers, hence the name, rake.
A fentanyl addict on chemo.
Oh no, he got leukemia. This is what happens when you don't give money to the Make-A-Wish kids. See, they resurrect and they come back for your wallet. But yeah, this would be a pants shittery situation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Moving on.
Jumping across the ocean, there are some stories from Australia as well. So this person reported on the crawler sightings subreddit. I'm a grown-ass woman now, and I still can't sleep at night with the curtains open. In fact, when I moved into my current house, I installed dual curtain rods so that even if my light-blocking curtains are open, there's a layer of privacy shears behind them to block any sight. I have seen the crawler 4 times. I don't truly know if it's the same one. They were all seen at different locations. It's been years since I last saw one, but I still feel like they were the same creature, or at least they knew me. The first time I was a very small child, perhaps 4 or 5. My house was an old-style flood house, so it was technically 2 stories tall, but under the house was where we kept the car and our laundry room. Upstairs was where the living areas were. We were one of the only houses there. It was in the early days of the town, and there were only a few other houses on the cul-de-sac. The back of our property was maybe 500 meters from the ocean, but you couldn't see or hear the coastline from the house. There were some light rainforests surrounding our fully fenced house. My bedroom faced the back of the property. I woke up one night, which wasn't unusual for me because I was a very light sleeper. This particular night, my parents hadn't closed my curtains. When I looked towards my window, I could see it. Keep in mind I was on the 2nd floor. I was looking through my window. I couldn't see much. The only light was coming from outside, but I could see the silhouette of its body. It was pale and thin, but still the frame of the creature was huge, easily 2 meters tall. It was hanging off of my roof, holding onto the frame of my window, and even though I couldn't see its face, I just knew it was looking at me. I was terrified. It's been almost 2 decades since I saw it, but I can still remember the intense fear I felt. It took me so much courage to get out of bed and to walk to my parents' room, where I finally fell back asleep. My parents told me it was just a dream. The next time I remember seeing it, I was probably around 7. I had moved houses probably a few months before, and my new house, about a 16-hour drive from my old place, was a single-story home, but still on the coast of the country. It was a lot further from the ocean, about 5 kilometers, but very much the same kind of area. We were one of the only houses in the area, and I had no neighbors. I woke up one night because I heard something banging against the metal fence. In Australia, we have a brand that makes fences and roofs out of corrugated metal that's been painted. They're quite common, about 6-foot-high cream-colored metal fences, and they make an unmistakable noise when something hits them. I have no idea how anything could climb one of these fences. They're completely smooth and nothing to grab onto. Even in my teens, I tried sneaking out by jumping the fence, and I just slid right down again. At first, when I woke up, I thought some birds must have landed on the fence, but the noise continued for longer than it would take a bird to land. My next thought was that someone was trying to break into the house. I turned over in bed to take the window, and I saw it. Well, I actually didn't see it at first. It was very dark, and I don't remember how much of a moon. As my eyes adjusted, I could only make out the figure hunched down in front of my window. Even in the hunched down pose, it was still huge. This time I didn't run to my parents. Their bedroom was no longer across the hall. It was all the way down the opposite side of the house. and I'd have to pass so many uncovered windows to get there. I don't remember when I fell asleep, but I eventually woke up in the morning, and once again my parents told me I must have been dreaming. However, from then on, they always came into my bedroom and closed my blinds before bed. The next time I saw it, I was 9. I know I was 9 because I just moved schools and made friends with a girl who we'll call Casey. She invited me to stay at her house one night, and I was so excited. She was the first friend I made since moving schools, and it had been ages since I'd gotten to have a sleepover. Everything went great. The night was perfectly normal, and I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of Casey crying. I sat up in bed and asked her what was wrong. She pointed towards the window, where I saw the thing again. Unfortunately for me, Casey had a nightlight, and I could see much more of the creature than I ever saw before. It looked so crusty and dry. It was almost totally white, devoid of any real identifying features, except it stared at us with black eyes and mouth agape. Casey's window was small, and it had to hunch down to see us. We both got up and ran crying to her mum. She turned on the outside light and brought us back inside the bedroom, and pointed out a large gum tree outside the window that she tried to explain we must have been what we saw. We argued with her that what we saw was right against the window, not several meters away, and it wasn't to the left, it was to the right. Casey's mom eventually let us sleep on the couch. A couple months later, Casey stayed over at my house. When I woke up in the morning, Casey was gone. I asked my parents, and they told us that Casey had gotten up in the night and started crying, begging to go home. When I saw her again on Monday at school, she told me she got up at night to go to the bathroom, and when she walked past the lounge room, she could see the tall skin monster crawling through the trees at the bottom of my backyard. She never came to my house again, and I lost touch when I moved schools a few years later. I don't know what it was I saw. It can't have been sleep paralysis. I was able to move and speak and everything. It wasn't a dream because someone else saw it too. I don't know if this relates in any way, but when my partner moved into my house a few months ago, he opened the curtains one night before bed. This time it was a full moon. I had already fallen asleep. Now I'm living in a 2-story house with my bedroom on the second floor again. I woke up in the middle of the night to my partner getting up and closing the curtains. When I asked him why, he told me he had a nightmare that there was a tall, skinny white man clinging onto my roof, almost like a spider, and it was peering into my bedroom. He said it must have been a hallucination. He had been up all night playing video games. And when he got up from the bed, it jumped back onto the roof. I still haven't told him, but his description of what he saw is exactly what I saw the first time I saw the crawler. Only now I'm living in a busy neighborhood with plenty of houses, unlike past experiences where I've been one of the only houses on the block surrounded by forest. I've always heard mimicking many times, but always drawn up to the imagination. Sometimes I hear my partner walk into the room and say hello at night. When I roll over, I see the light coming down the hallway, and I realize that he's still in the lounge room on the computer. I've heard my mother's voice a few times too. Throughout my childhood and all the homes I've lived in, we've had issues with dogs barking at nothing and security motion detector lights randomly coming on at night when nobody is there. I don't know if these two things are related or not, but I've heard similar happening in crawler-related stories before, and I thought I'd mention it. So that is really interesting. It's almost like they or it was specifically following her. And the fact that it was potentially mimicking her mom or her boyfriend's voice, that's pretty creepy. I haven't really heard too much of that, where that particular monster is making other voices to try to lure people out.
Yeah, I've actually heard this story before, and I've heard others very similar, including the mimicry.
Oh, okay. This is my first time actually hearing about this story, and I couldn't imagine seeing it so many times over the course of your life, and especially as a child. That would be so scary.
Yeah, that is just immediate pit of your stomach drop out kind of situation right there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that would be absolutely terrifying. And the fact that you can hear it like climbing on the fence and like it's there.
Yeah, and like the fact that the mom was just like, you just saw the tree. I mean, when you got multiple kids saying like, no, it was over here and it was this, and why wouldn't she just immediately go, well, maybe they saw a man, like an intruder. Like, like, why was her first thing to just be like, it's just kids? But both of them are freaking out. And they're both saying, we saw it here. And it looks like a man. So why didn't she just be like, there's a man outside?
Yeah, I would think like something was going on.
Tall, emaciated, could use some coconut butter, but probably some fentanyl addict bogan. He doesn't have the mullet anymore, but he just out there roaming the backyards.
Yeah, there's some all cracked out fent addict.
Yeah, cracked out freaking Aussie bogan. Roaming around, probably wearing just some typical bogan attire, some short shorts and no shirt.
You never know.
Yeah, maybe he was an alcoholic painter and he just spilled a bucket of paint on himself and then passed out in someone's yard, woke up and started wandering for the neighborhood. There you go. If you want to rationalize it, it doesn't have to be you saw a tree.
You saw a tree.
Yeah.
It was a gum tree.
Nah. It's just a gum tree outside. And meanwhile, it's just like, it was against the glass and it was a dude.
Yeah, or a freaking monster.
Yeah. Or an 8-foot tall Spider-Man thing, Yeah,
something that's going to haunt your dreams and give you PTSD.
Yeah. Just freaking ashy Michael Jordan with vitiligo.
Jumping over to phantomsandmonsters.com, there were some more stories of pale crawlers reported. This one from the perspective of the witness. So a few years ago, my husband was driving home and it was around probably 10 p.m. He saw something on the side of the road crouched down over a deer, presumably eating it. This happened in rural upstate New York. He stopped the car to shine his headlights at it and see what it was. It bolted towards the car, hit it, and my husband took off. He said it was gray, skinny, and had long claw-like fingers. He said it looked exactly like some crawler images recently posted. Recently, he heard a weird screeching noise followed by a bubbling gurgling outside that kept repeating at night. He immediately went to investigate. He decided it was really freaky and decided to come inside. Weird things keep happening. Things go missing here. Stray cats have gone missing. We've had endless bad luck lately, like beyond what could be deemed coincidental. I'm wondering if this could all be related. If so, we'd like to know what we can do. So yeah, another case of person's just driving along the road and like there that thing is. But in this case, it charged the car.
Yeah,
so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's a unique one. But, the cat's going missing and all this other stuff, sound a lot like Springfield, Ohio. Yeah, other than the charging the car fits general description. Although this is the first time I ever heard of one like being like extremely aggressive. Most of the time they just kind of scare the piss out of you and run away.
Well, if they are like ghouls, they're more of like a scavenger. They're not so much a predator, but they could be a predator. Just so that's simply an opportunistic one.
That's
if
exactly
it's like
what I was going to say.
A single person who may be frail or weak, like a child or an elderly person that's like cut off from the group or is just out on their own in the dark, could be an easy victim for this thing.
Yeah, that's like, I've heard multiple stories of kids see them. That's the one it usually sticks around with, like just kind of like observing, because most of the time, the kids are inside, they can't get in, but it's still like it wants to be inside. Other than a few like stories I've heard of like people going out on jogs at night or like really early in the morning, or kids hearing like legends like throughout the neighborhood of something going on, and they go out and look at night. Or I heard one story of a girl and her, I believe it may have been a cat, could have been a dog, I can't remember. Regardless, it was a pet, and I think this was in Arizona, where they have a lot of the dry flood canals, like the concrete, like kind of like the LA River deal.
Yeah, and
she was looking for her, dog, cat, whatever it was, and she went down in there and this was not a covered one, but it was near a road where, you would have like the culvert, which would go underneath the road, which was covered. And she went down in there and was looking around and then got a sighting of the pale crawler eating her pet.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Also, I heard another story where, that previous case, that's when it kind of like, I guess it was already eating, so it didn't really pursue her, child alone in its habitat, be a target. But this next one, and this is right off the top of the head, probably actually, pull this stuff up so I can show you directly, but I don't even know where I would find it because this was a while ago when I seen this. It was I want to say Army, may have possibly been Marine Corps, but they were doing land nav at night, and he came across one of the pale crawlers when he was doing a solo land nav. Like it was a total no light, no white light, no red light, no nods. So you're not running NVGs, you're not running your white light, you don't have your red headlamp, like nothing. And like you're just out in the dark, pitch black. And he said he was going through a bunch of briars, and he looked up on, like, there was a small hill with a stump on it, and it looked like a silhouette of a fellow recruit. So he slowly crawled up, thinking that maybe they're lost. They went to the highest point, the skyline, maybe either to look around. They went to the nearest landmark, which, generally what you want to do in land nav, except for under, combat situation, you don't want to skyline yourself. So that's why he went up there to tell them, hey, get down. Well, don't skyline. You need help. You stuck. But when he got up to it, it turned around and it was the pale crawler. And it ran off after him screaming and freaking the hell out like most would. And of course, this is land nav, so they're unarmed. I think maybe at most they may have had their like 3-day assault bag with like the entrenching tool. So maybe he could have beamed it in the head with a shovel, but that would have been about it. Yeah, without having any weapon at all, he had to go back to their forward operating position for when they were doing the exercise, and through the dark with that thing just kind of like skulking around him the whole time.
Oh man, that would be absolutely like
hell
scary.
Yeah,
you're in the dark.
I know probably
unarmed.
some of the listeners who are like really like into like this subject and like just general cryptids, they probably have heard the story I'm talking about, and they could probably, like, if they were cool, then maybe they could pop a link in the comments. But
yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Be a homie.
Love to see
Help me out.
I would love to find that story to read it myself. But I couldn't imagine you're out in the dark with not even a flashlight. Like, damn.
Yeah, just mostly freaking bear crawling through brush. And then that thing's like a foot away from your face.
It makes me wonder, like, how many times you're like out at night and there's something like in the shadows just like watching and you don't know it's there.
Yeah, so the next time you go to take the trash out and you feel like you're being watched,
maybe it's one of the pale crawlers waiting to eat you.
All I could think of is that scene from SpongeBob, working at the Krusty Krab at night, taking out the trash at night. Immediately runs inside.
Singing slasher.
Yeah.
So overall, I think the pale crawlers, even if they are just an urban legend, it's very interesting. Makes a lot of good stories. If it's more than an urban legend, oh damn, that is some scary shit that I would not really want to run into.
Yeah, not at all. And there's multiple like similar entities throughout like not just native folklore, like I was about to touch on, but I would like to revisit this in a future episode where we can maybe talk in more about the backstories of the creepypasta and then how it links into the folklore throughout time.
We could totally revisit this in the future.
Yeah, many, many stories in this sort of genre of cryptid.
If you're listening, let us know if that would be something you would be interested in.
Also, if you have any personal accounts.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Enter the Rift podcast. I think we ran into some pretty cool stories. Please leave a review, share it with your friends. Let us know what you think. That's about all.
Peace.